Had some passionate sex. He was probably terrified. Probably didn't want to do it. And then he went back to bed. Then Katherine took a butcher knife from next to her bed, where she had always kept them. So she kept butcher knives in the bedroom, and stabbed Price 37 times. Yeah, according. Yeah, so what is called is a Australian beach worm, and they can grow more than 2 meters in length.
Wow.
They are blind, but have a very good sense of smell. They eat decayed meat. So if your foot's not decaying, I guess they won't eat you.
So they're kind of like scavengers. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. Speaking of eating, we do have a main topic tonight. And it's called What's for Dinner, Mom? And it's the story of a sad story of the murder of John Price. Yeah, the scariest thing in Australia is Maza. I would agree with that. Okay. So yeah, the murder of John Price. Now I'm going to warn everyone, if you aren't if you get a little queasy about true crimes, this one might not. You might want to. It's okay if you leave, or you can stay. But I'm just going to warn you. This one's a little rough. This one could be a little rough. Now I do like true crimes, and I do like to find true crimes that don't really get talked about a lot, or they're just kind of weird. It's not like the normal true crime, right? So this one, like I said, this is about a man and a lady that lived in Australia. So we're going to go through, and then we're going to tell you what happened what the unfortunate events that happened to this man. Now this was John Charles Thomas. So who was he? He was born in April 4th of 1955. Oh yeah, Beard, you got to hit the like button before you leave. John had a limited education. When he left school at the age of 14, he can barely read and write. However, he was a hard worker, and he worked in heavy machinery, earth moving equipment, trucking, and mining. He did get married. He married his wife Colleen. They had 3 children together, a son and 2 daughters. However, in 1988, he split up with his wife Colleen. He seems like a cool dude, right? He seems like you can. He's got like a shark tooth necklace.
He seems like a little blue collar background.
Yeah, he seems like a hardworking guy. Like he's probably a simple guy. I mean, he seems like he could be a good person, right? You wouldn't want to harm this man. Who knows? It sounds like, based on what I've read in the stories, he was a very gentle human being. Now, before we get into what happened to him, this is who he ends up meeting, this lady named Katherine Knight. And she was also born in 1955, so they're about the same age. However, Knight went through probably a different childhood. In her childhood, she was severe physical abuse. At the age 15, she actually found her calling when she began to work as a butcher in a slaughterhouse. And that's something a 15-year-old probably shouldn't do, right? I don't know, in Australia, I don't know. Maybe that's different. I don't know. She actually married her first husband, David Kellett, in 1974. She is thought to have beaten Kellett frequently throughout their marriage, and even tried to strangle him on their wedding night. So she doesn't sound like a very stable person. Now, speaking of that wedding night, what happened was they sealed the deal 3 times that night. So hoorah, right? However, she wanted to go a 4th time, and he was too tired. And she didn't like that, so she actually strangled him to make sure he was able to keep going.
Wow.
Yeah, she's pretty. So yeah. Now she had children with Kellett. Her first child, Melissa Ann, in 1976, and then they had another daughter, Natasha, in 1980. In 1986, he broke up with Kellett and jumped into a whirlwind romance with David Saunders. So she was with other guy. Also a minor. He was a minor. Like her previous relationships, this one quickly grew toxic and violent. At one point, he actually slit the throat of a 2-month-old puppy in front of him just to show him what she was capable of.
You can't trust anybody that doesn't respect animals.
Isn't that true? That's very
that
true.
is so true.
Now, it's not only what she did. She also would hang butcher knives on her ceiling.
Yeah.
Above the bed. Not like on the wall, like a photo. Literally, like when you're laying, you're looking up at butcher knives. She would do those type of things.
Yeah, it's when you're the one time you're supposed to be at the most peace of your life. You can't.
Mm-hmm.
She's making sure of that.
Right.
Oh
she was a very abusive wife or girlfriend. She was the kind of the opposite to what usually happens in the world of relationships. But she doesn't look like a mean and nasty person, right? She looks pretty normal, right?
Yeah.
So she met John Price in a bar because she obviously broke up with that other guy. So yeah, they broke up. So she met John in a bar, and they hung. They seemed to like each other. She was nice to him at the moment. But so basically, so the beginning of the relationship, John's relationship with her was without complications. She didn't show her true colors. He had 2 older children who lived with him, and they seemed to like Nite and he made enough money as a minor. So he was also a minor to keep her comfortable. So he was like her, she wouldn't have to worry about anything. He was making good money, and she seemed pretty comfortable. They moved in together in 1995. Things were going smoothly. However, when she suggested that they marry and he declined, then she turned violent. So I can see that, right? He went through a divorce and maybe he didn't want to do it again just because of that fact. Would you agree? Like, I mean, that happens to a lot of people, right? They divorce and they don't want to remarry.
I've been divorced once, so
yeah, okay.
I know you need a little cool down time.
Yes, and maybe it was too soon for him, right? Well, she didn't like that, so she got a little upset. She framed Price for stealing things from his company and got him fired. Price kicked her out of the house a few months later, and they started seeing each other. But then they started seeing each other again, so she came back. I guess he doesn't know her past.
Oh.
But they would argue a lot, off and on. He's actually quoted saying to his job that if he ever goes missing, check his wife. What she might have done something to him. So, however, this time he refused to let her back in. So after this one argument, a big fight, he didn't want her to move back in. We could date, but you're not moving in with me. According to his friends and neighbors, Nite's violence then began to escalate. So Kathy got a little even more heated over this situation. So basically, in February of 2000, an argument between John and Kathy culminated with her attempting to stab him in the chest. He took out a restraining order against her in the attempt to keep his children safe. So she's already tried to stab him once now. Toward the end of the month, Price let on that he was concerned for his safety and told his coworkers, here you go, that if he ever went missing, it was because Nite killed him. So he already kind of knew that she was crazy now, or she was something screw loose, or she was violent, and she could probably do some real harm to not just him, but his entire family. Look at this; everyone's already dropped out. They don't want to listen to this story. It's okay; you can watch later. Now, on February 29th of 2000, John Charles Thomas Price came home from work and followed his usual routine for checking in with the neighbors before going to bed at 11 p.m. Nite came home shortly after, made herself dinner, watched TV, showered, and then went upstairs. She woke up Price. She was home with him. The two had some passionate sex. He was probably terrified. Probably didn't want to do it. And then he went back to bed. Then Katherine took a butcher knife from next to her bed, where she had always kept them. So she kept butcher knives in the bedroom, and stabbed Price 37 times. Yeah, according to evidence, he woke up during the attack but could not fight her off. And this is all because he didn't want her to live with her or marry. So as we know, she wasn't a very stable person anyways, right? But it gets crazier after this, folks. Nite dragged his John's body downstairs, skinned him, and hung his body from a meat hook in the living room. Then she decapitated him, cut him up in pieces of his body to cook in a dish with potato, pumpkin, beets, zucchini, cabbage, squash, and gravy. And that photo is an actual photo of the crime scene. She then made a dish for herself. Through a half discarded contents later found at the crime scene suggests that she couldn't finish her meal. Now, she actually made plates for all of her children, and then she put their names next to each plate where they should eat. So when they came home, dinner was ready.
So she ate some herself?
Yes.
Is that?
But she couldn't finish it.
That's I'm not sure what it is. There's something about the reason we can't eat other human meat. It does something to our brains. I can't remember what it is. I learned it a long, long time ago, back in like my first year of college, that it literally, there's some kind of cell that we're not supposed to consume that does something to our brain that makes us crazy.
Unless we're starving, right, in the middle of winter or something like a.
But yeah, that's why cannibalism will, like, even animals in the wild, they can't eat their own because they'll go crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what it was. I can't remember what it does to your brain. You're not supposed to eat.
Well, if you know what that is, anybody watching and you want to.
Yeah, I remember learning about that. I can't remember what it is, and it goes straight to your brain and makes you crazy. You're not supposed
There's
to
actually a movie. There's a movie about that. There's a guy where he accidentally ingests human flesh because he's in the Civil War or something. He's on a pile of dead men, and he actually goes a little. He does go crazy, and he actually. It's called Ravenous, I think, is the movie.
Okay,
it's actually a really good movie. So Price's coworkers heeded his warning. That's nice of him. The next morning and called the police after he didn't show up for his shift. The police arrived to find Katherine Knight's gruesome crime scene and immediately detained the comatose Nite. Once she woke up, she claimed to have no memory of the night before. So she claims she doesn't remember doing any of this. In the kitchen, police found Price's head in a boiling in a pot of vegetables on the stove. On the table, they found 2 full plates, each labeled with a name in horror. The police realized that the Nite had planned to serve John Price's body parts to his children. So there you go. I already kind of mentioned that, but yeah. So she was so bad that he didn't want to marry her, and that he got a restraining order on her because she was a little crazy, and that he didn't want her around. Kinda. That she did this to him. Very sad, very sad. It's a very sad story, but it's a very interesting story. It's like, what gets the human to do something like this to someone? Like, what tells you this is okay to do? Now, what is going on now with her? This is her right here. She's never to be released, despite her claim that she had no recollection of the night. John Charles Thomas Price died. Kathleen Knight was quickly charged with his murder. In October of 2001, her trial commenced, but it didn't get very far for reasons that remain unclear. Knight changed her plea to guilty, and the judge adjourned the case without testimony. She was escorted to prison that day, and the judge ordered that her papers be marked never to be released. For the first time in history, a woman in Australia, so the first time in Australian history, was given a life sentence without parole. To this day, Knight nevertheless maintains her innocence and refuses to accept responsibility for her actions. So she's sort of famous. but she was the first woman to get life without parole in Australia.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And if you read up on Australian true crime, it's amazing that she is the first one, to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they didn't want to give women, they wanted to give women the chance to, I don't know, get parole over, even if they did something really, really awful. And but yeah, it's surprisingly, if you look up the history of true crime, murders and stuff like that with Australia, it's surprising that she is the first. I'll tell you that one. So yeah, I know it's a little sombering, but I hope that
that's okay.
I just thought it was a really interesting. I was looking up some true crimes. Like, I haven't done a true crime before, and I was like, is there any true crime out there that most people don't talk about? Is there a true crime with some history to it? And unfortunately, John Price was. I do say a little prayer to his family, because that is horrible, that what happened to him. So here's some input on what you were talking about.
Yeah.
I think it's pronounced Kuru, is a neurodegenerative disorder caused by a Piron. Now, you know you're not supposed to put like these long, big words in a comment where I have to read them. Beard. Infectious protein found in brain tissue. So I guess this was what causes people to do what this.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if she had eaten human flesh before. Maybe this wasn't her first crime. I don't know.
It is found in those participating in tribalistic cannibalism. Yeah. Really gruesome. We went from like haha having fun to this, but that's how the show goes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's all good.
Sorry, good, buddy. Trying to be. It's okay. Just say what you want to say. I'll try to read it, and then you can laugh at me later. It's just, it's like, I guess these guys it never clicked to them that there was some red flags, right? Because I'm sure there were.
Well, I'm just sitting there thinking, well, like, how is she in your house again?
Maybe she has the golden something. You know what? No, she's abusive though.
He must just be a victim of some sort. They just, I don't know.
And just like with, women, they if they're really abused like that, they tend to go back to their abusers.
I see.
The really bad ones. I'm not talking like the really, really bad. They tend to, for whatever reason, I'm not a psychologist, but it seems like with stories like this, with with the opposite, the females just seem to go back. But maybe it's the same with males. Who knows? But yeah, she dominated a few of them. She actually had I think she had 6 children with 3 different men. So,
yeah, I know it is Australia. I don't know what the timeline was when they don't have firearms anymore, because I can tell you, I mean, thank God I haven't had to deal with that, but someone crazy like that showed any type of that and thought they were coming back to my home, you better not cross that line, because you're just not going to make it.
You're done.
Yeah. You're just not.
Yeah. Well, folks, if you're single men out there, if you ever come across a lady, she likes to put knives in her room, stay away. Stay far away.